All right. And we are live. Thank you guys for joining me. This is fun. This is my first live. I'm excited to do this. Been wanting to do this for a while. And like the rest of my channel, I'm just kind of figuring this all out on the fly. So let's get into it. Seeing some questions already. First one from, is it Matthias? Hope I pronouncing your name right. I get annoyed when people don't announce mine right. Jovan, with the arrival of Dinwiddie in the rotation and imagining that Christie can play the role of Reddish, would you cut Reddish to bring in someone with shooting ability? Example, Joe Harris. It's an interesting question. I actually think that Cam still might be ahead of Max, at least in Darvin's pecking order. I think based on the way that Max has played in recent weeks, I would have him ahead of Cam when they both come back. But I would not be surprised. I mean, I think, as we saw the last time Cam was healthy and available, he was ahead of Max in the rotation. So I would not be surprised if that continues, despite what I think has been better overall play, at least recently, from the recent versions we've seen of them. I would put Max ahead of Cam, especially for the rebounding. I think he also has a better sense of his skill set. And with Cam, like that stretch when he entered the starting lineup and he was really productive. He did reduce some of the the turnovers and trying to force things offensively off the dribble. But I feel like some of that stuff started to come back as the season progressed. And that to me is a kind of a key difference. Max is a better shooter. I think defensively they're similar. Cam's a bit bigger and more athletic, but Max has better fundamentals and hand technique. And I just think Max is a more reliable, consistent player. You kind of know what you're going to get. And I thought he really showed something in that Knicks game closing. And I would have liked to see him more on Jalen Brunson actually to close that game. So let's see here. Next one. Hey, Jovan, how confident? This is from Nimit. Hey, Jovan, how confident are you in the Lakers landing a true star such as Trae or Kyrie? I think with any of these types of blockbuster trades, they're always less likely to happen than more likely to happen. So I would say my confidence can't be more than like 35%, and that might even be more optimistic than the true odds. So with those types of situations, like I think the Lakers are going to be in the mix, but we have to see how Atlanta's season plays out. From my understanding, I think it's going to have to be they flame out and lose in round one, lose in the play-in tournament for Trae to potentially become available. And then with Kyrie, I think it's a similar thing where does Dallas has played much better since the trade deadline. They look much better with the PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford additions. Can that team rise into like the 5 or 6 seed, or do they stick around in the play-in tournament? So I think with Dallas, that one, it would have to be they flame out and management just realizes like, hey, the Kyrie Luka pairing just doesn't work together. Year one, we don't make the playoffs. Year two, we either lose in the round one or lose in the play-in tournament. And, we think it'd be better to move on from Kyrie and get, D'Lo and maybe Max and, a pick or something over the offseason, like whatever it is to you got to match the salary. That was just me kind of riffing. But something like that where, that's where I think Dallas would have to pivot away from that duo and just kind of basically accept that that's not a championship level pairing. But there's still a lot of season left. I'm relatively bullish on Dallas. I think they can kind of figure it out and potentially get into that 5 or 6 mix. And for those who are new, for those who are not subscribed yet, please be sure to subscribe, hit that like button, drop a comment, drop a question. And just started this YouTube channel about 2 weeks ago. Really appreciated the support, the comments. I try to respond to every single one, at least the positive ones. And I really appreciate you guys tuning in right now. All right. Thank you, Justin. I appreciate you. Sean, do you think they add another big man, or is Dinwiddie our lone buyout acquisition? Right now, I would say Dinwiddie's likely the lone buyout acquisition. I know the Lakers are monitoring the buyout market, and there's still a little bit of time. You have to sign someone by March 1st for them to be playoff eligible. So they have a couple weeks here to continue to evaluate Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes, Cam Reddish. Obviously, it was a name we just discussed a couple minutes ago. Though the tricky part with all three guys is they all have a player option on year 2, which means that it's not just waiving the rest of season salary. You are eating that money next season. So you really have to be convinced that whatever player you are signing is not only an upgrade on them for this season, but worth eating into your cap next season. And it's not a big number, but it every dollar counts. And then on top of that, you have the cap coming in at about a projected $1 million or so less than the initial projections. So, that already is kind of squeezing you a little bit for next season, just as a franchise trying to plan out your cap sheet. So I would say for the Lakers, I don't think, like Biyombo was a name that they had been looking at going back to last summer. He obviously signed with OKC on a 10-day. Like, they could go that route and maybe rotate a couple of guys. But I think Christian and Jackson Jackson to me, what was the one guy that this was maybe like a month and a half ago, you could have talked me into waiving Jackson with just his role in the rotation at that point and his play up to that point. But I look at the Boston game, like I look at some of these performances he's had and these effective spurts that he can have. And I think he's been a useful rotation player, at least in the regular season. Now you could look at like the Utah second quarter and Utah really took it to Jackson. And I don't think you want him as your last line of defense. I think you want to try and pair him as much with AD as possible, or at least with a bigger front line of like, Vando and Rui, Vando and LeBron, Rui and LeBron, something like that, where you're kind of limiting his defensive mistakes. But I think Jackson's been useful. Christian has been a bit up and down, and I think maybe he's a guy who you do him a solid of like, hey, I know you haven't played as much as you'd probably wanted to. Like, you can go sign with a team and be playoff eligible. Like maybe that's an option for them. But I just don't know who that guy is. Like, is it Robin Lopez? Is it who else is really out there on the buyout market? And Joe, I know Joe Harris was the name mentioned earlier. I think Joe Harris, if you look at his year-to-year production, it's not where it used to be. It's been several years since he's been a successful rotation player. So I don't think Joe Harris is the answer. Let's see. Big Baby Sports. Shout out Big Baby. Favorite food in LA, favorite food on the road. Favorite food on the road, I keep it simple. I like having like a smoothie or something for breakfast. I try to eat relatively healthy on the road because I don't get to work out and be as active as normal. So now look, some cities don't have smoothies, and that's those are the cities that are probably not atop my favorite like road city list. Favorite food in LA, I'll say the steak I make. I try to make like a nice steak like once a week with my fiance, and that's my favorite meal in LA. Joan, hi Jovan, hope you're having a great day. The Lakers are on a small roll right now heading into the All-Star game weekend. When everyone is healthy, do you think the Lakers lock a top 6 seed by April? This is a really good question, and this is the question that I think might define the Lakers season the rest of the way. Like I think if there's a way to get out of the play-in tournament and get a top 6 seed, like that shows like, one, they are playing at a certain level the rest of the season, and they've leapfrogged several teams in the standings, and they have a sense of momentum. It's similar to last season where they rose from 13 to 7. In this case, it would be rising from there was a point where they were 11th. So like rising from like 11 to 6, like that's a similar leap to last season. Uh, but to me, it's going to come down more so for the matchups where I look at like I think the ideal scenario for LA is being on the side of the bracket with Minnesota and Oklahoma City. And if there's a way to can't really game the system, it's hard to do that, especially with how crammed the West standings are. And if you try to lose a game on purpose, you can end up as a 9 or 10 seed and potentially lose in the play-in tournament and like your season's over. But if like when I'm projecting out the ideal Lakers playoff bracket, I think it's Minnesota and Oklahoma City as like the 2 and 3 seed. The Lakers are the 6 or the 7, and I could see them going on a similar run where I just like those matchups against Minnesota and against OKC. I think Minnesota has a giant, significant size advantage ahead, against most teams and in most matchups. That front court is physically imposing. The Lakers are one of the few teams that can negate that advantage. And as we've seen, Anthony Davis, like Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns cannot defend Anthony Davis. And, there are ways they can play off of him, force him to shoot jumpers. And if his jumper's not falling, then maybe the Lakers lose that series. But I just think with the way LeBron attacks the rim against Rudy, like Rudy to me has not played at a defensive player of the year caliber level against the Lakers. And that just goes back for years now where it's just not a great matchup against LeBron. It's not a great matchup against AD. Anthony Edwards is going to have his way with the Lakers defense. And like, there's only so much they could do, especially if Vando's potentially out. But I really like that Minnesota matchup for the Lakers. And then I really like the OKC matchup because it's kind of like the flip side where that team's so small that the Lakers have a incredible physical advantage with the front court. And we've seen Chet cannot guard AD. He cannot match up with AD on rebounds. He cannot match up with AD in the post. And the Lakers will spam AD in post-ups and rolls to the rim and different actions to get Chet into foul trouble and to force and okay, like, maybe Bismack Biyombo comes in and gives them a productive like 10, 12 minutes against AD or whatever. But I think that's a bad matchup for OKC. And I think that's bore out in the regular season with the Lakers being up 2-1 in the season series. So let's go to the next one. Daily Roms Nation. Hi, Yovan. Love your show. Is there a chance PJ Tucker will be bought out or waived by the Clippers? And if that's the case, what do you think who do you think the Lakers can cut? So from what I've heard, there is a chance PJ could get bought out. I think if the Clippers had signed Danilo Gallinari, that would have been PJ might have been the guy they cut. So in that case, I mean, I think he would make some sense. The fear is like he has fallen off a bit over the last year or so. And to me, I'm not quite sure he is a rotation player. But if you can get some type of intel that he's at least, stayed in shape, and if you have the buy-in from LeBron and AD, and they think that that's a guy that, again, is no one's going to replace Vando, and they're not even the same type of player necessarily, but just bringing in a big, tough forward who can spot up, literally like that's his only role offensively is just stand in the corners, stand above the break, take catch and shoot threes, and then defensively can defend through mainly 4s and 5s, maybe some of the lesser, less athletic 3s. You could talk me into it. As far as who, I guess if I'm looking at it, like me personally, I'm not speaking for the Lakers here, or that this isn't any intel. Like I would maybe lean. I'd probably lean Jack. Like I probably have less confidence in Jackson in a playoff series than Christian. I just think Christian is the better and more established player. Jackson has been a bit up and down, and again, like we'll see a game like the Boston game, and then we'll see a game like the Utah game where I thought he was pretty rough defensively. So I would, I guess, between the three, Cam to me becomes more important now that Vando is potentially out. And again, we'll see in the coming weeks like what happens with Vando. But if Vando's out, I think you need Cam just as like wing defense insurance. and then it becomes, Jackson versus Christian. So I guess I would lean Christian. We've seen the Lakers, that front court of AD, Christian, and LeBron. We haven't seen it much recently, but that did have its moments early in the season. And I just, I mean, just straight up, like, Christian's the better player. Obviously, I think defensively they both have their concerns, and, like, I don't love either of those guys in, like, a Denver series. I would love to bring in a big who could, and that's where, like, PJ Tucker, going back to last season, he's had success defending Nikola Jokic and just being like a fire hydrant in the post. And then you could put, similar to the way the Lakers have used Rui and LeBron against Jokic, you can put PJ Tucker on him for 8-10 minutes, and then have AD roaming as the helper, and that to me makes a lot of sense. So I guess if I had to pick, I'd say Jackson, but I'm not. I mean, one, PJ Tucker has to be waived. Two, he has to pick the Lakers, and three, then the Lakers have to make that decision of, we're going to waive someone and eat that money next season. So there's a lot of factors that have to go into that. So I would say it's unrealistic as of now, but PJ Tucker's making us think. He's already gotten fined. So who knows? Maybe he does get waived. Let's see here. Scrolling back up a little bit. Okay, Matt. Hey, Ovan, what do you think the Lakers' full rotation will look like once everyone is healthy? That's a really good question, because we still don't know the health of Jarred Vanderbilt and Gabe Vincent, in terms of, what's Gabe's timing. I've reported that I've heard some internal pessimism from people within the Lakers about Jarred Vanderbilt returning this season. Up to this point, he's been able to stave off season-ending surgery for his foot. But in the case that Jarred Vanderbilt has season-ending foot surgery, obviously that changes the Lakers' rotation. That changes the dynamic of the roster. They don't really have another guy who can do what peak Vando does. So I'll give you two scenarios. I'll give you Vando's back and Vando isn't back, and let's just say Gabe's back for argument's sake. I think they're going to stick with the starting lineup. I think they have to. The results have been overwhelming. They're 5-0 with this group of starters. They're 8-2 with this in the 10 games that this group has played, which, it's pretty crazy. This group has only played in 10 games. If you really think about that, these are, in my opinion, the Lakers' 5 best players. The starting lineup of AD, LeBron, Rui, Austin, and D'Lo. I can hear a case for Spencer Dinwiddie now. I can hear a case for Jarred Vanderbilt. But to me, Rui is the Lakers' 5th best player in a vacuum. And the fact that those guys have only played in 10 games together, and they've been available for, I would have to look it up, but I would assume at least 30-ish games. And the fact that they've only played in 10, I think that's one of the not, I think, people have been very critical of Darvin, and I think, deservedly so to some extent. But if you really want to knock something, like some of the lineup stuff with just the guys from last season, like that group playing in only 10 games together is just, that's wild to me. So I'll say those 5 off the bench. I'll go Dinwiddie. I will go Vincent if he's healthy. I think, like, he was the primary offseason addition. The Lakers are paying him $11 million. Like, he's the 6th highest paid player on the team. So, like, Vincent's going to play. If he comes back and he's healthy, he's going to play. So I'd go Dinwiddie, Vincent. If we're saying Vando's healthy, I'll throw Vando in there. And then I'll say it'll be matchup. Like, that's probably the top 8. And then it's a bit matchup based, where against bigger teams, I think it's Christian. Against smaller teams, I'll say it's Max or Cam. Like, I think, again, it should be Max, but we'll see. And we'll see what state Cam is in. If you have Vando, though, you probably don't need Cam. So I'll go Max. And then, well, how did I forget Torian, actually? So, okay, Max, you're out. Torian's in there. Okay, so it's Tor. So Spencer, that's funny. I'll say Spencer, Gabe, Torian, and then Vando. That's your 9. And then if you need a 10th, it's Christian or Max, depending on the matchup. If Vando is out, it's the same guys. I just think you swap in then Max or Cam. I would go Max. I think Darvin would go Cam. And then that last spot is, do you need another wing defender or do you need a big? So that would be my, like, top 9 in, like, a playoff series. And again, you might even go like 7 or 8. It is really funny that I forgot Torian. Like the Chile. Hey Yovan, what's the best way to meet an NBA player? Oof. Best way, I mean, go if you can go to a game and get there early, helps to have a kid with you. If you can get to like depending on where you're sitting, I don't know the exact rules on like the player, like the locker room entrance and standing there, but like I do see every game I'm at, there's a bunch of fans there. The players will stop, sign autographs, take pictures. I think another way, like if there's ever a meet and greet, those lines typically get crazy and you get like 30 seconds with the player, but that's another way. Um, a less advisable way, but like it kind of depends on the players. Like I do see people standing outside the crypto.com arena garage and with signs and their phones out and stuff. And like sometimes players will stop and say hi. That one's a little bit more confrontational. You're almost kind of like paparazzi. So I might not advise that one, but um, those would be the ways. And yeah, those would be the legal ways I would advise it. Um, Julie, Jovan, how realistic does LAL acquiring feel to you? Acquiring another player, or is this like a buyout guy? Is this a trade? Again, I'll say trade. Like those are always under 50%, and any of those guys that I've reported on, others have reported on. You got to put the odds low. But for buyout guy, I'd also put the odds relative, like both under 50%. Um, Julius, yeah, I mean, Jackson has been better lately. And again, I'm not advocating waiving Jackson. I think it's more if I had to pick between Jackson and Christian, I think I would lean Christian. But if you want to make the case for Jackson, I totally get it. Lance, how did you get to where you are today? Did you go to college? I did go to college. I went to USC. I studied print and digital journalism with a minor in sports media studies. So I went to USC from 2010 to 2014, and I made it. My goal was cover the NBA, so that was my focus. Going to sophomore year, I got a big break where it was kind of like just like all these things started happening for me. Got an internship with USC football. Shout out to USC football, my first official job of any kind. But I was an intern there. Then that summer, I got started. I got a position with ESPN True Hoop. Got an internship at Grantland, and from that point on, started freelance writing for ESPN LA. So like sophomore through senior year of college, I was a freelance writer for ESPN LA, and at the time it was Dave McMenamin covering the Lakers, which is kind of funny that now I cover the beat with him, and then Arash Markazi covering the Clippers. So in both cases, if there was like a Saturday morning where maybe they're coming off like a back-to-back or a road trip or something, and they didn't want to go, they would pay me like $50, and I would go cover practice. Or there were some games where, for whatever reason, it was someone's birthday or they had a prior obligation or something. They would send me to the game, and I'd get again like $50 to write a game story, and that was like the coolest thing in the world to me. That was my welcome into all this. So I started covering games at 18, and I'm now 31. So you do the math. It's been a while, but since 2011, I've had a credential. Started kind of covering both teams. Went through phases where I covered the Lakers more, the Clippers more. Then got to the Athletic, covered the Clippers for 2 years, and now this is my 4th year covering the Lakers. So it's been quite the journey, but I love what I do, and continue to do more stuff like this. And it feels weird plugging stuff, but I'm going to continue to plug it. If you have not subscribed, please be sure to subscribe. Check out some of my other videos. I'm doing vlogs. I've been posting availabilities, and I'm now doing some reaction videos after games. Podcast coming soon. Buha's Block going to be on here. Going to be on Spotify, Apple Music. But yeah, that's a quick. I could do a longer thing on my career if you want. I'm just trying to get into everyone's questions here. Alvin, I don't know. So, do you know who Kendrick Perkins was talking about? I don't know who he's talking about. I think I know who he's talking about. I think the breadcrumbs are a little bit out there, so I'll just leave it at that. But I think if you think about it, young superstar, look at the 3 names. Which one's the young superstar? Which one has young in their name? I'll leave it at that. Uh, let's see, next question. Blair, JB checking in from Scotland. Shout out to Scotland. I was actually there. This was 2022 fall. Went to a wedding there. Beautiful. Bron has $50 million player option next year. Do you think he splits it? Plus some over a few years? No, I don't think he splits it. I think if LeBron opts out and gets an extension, I think it's going to be maybe there's a chance it's slightly less if it's like a 3-year extension, and maybe the annual is like slightly less. But I think if LeBron LeBron has yet to take a significant pay cut. And until he takes one, I'm going to be skeptical that he's going to take one. And look, that's his prerogative. But he's not done the Tim Duncan, Dirk Nowitzki, like, let me give a hometown discount. Let me be like a mid-level player so my team can sign better free agents. Like that's not. And look, I mean, he's an all-star. I think he's still an all-NBA caliber guy right now. So like, it's hard to fault him when he's giving you that level of production. Like you can make a case LeBron's underpaid even at 50 million. And you could certainly make the case he's been underpaid his whole career. Like you saw what the worth of Cleveland went down. Like the city's value went down by like $1 billion or whatever once he left in 2010. So like LeBron has been underpaid his entire career. And I think it's tough to fault him for, not taking a pay cut. So I don't think he's going to take a pay cut. I think he's going to opt in. If I had to make a prediction right now, I think he's just going to exercise that. There's a chance maybe he comes to an extension, but I think that would maybe he'd maybe have to see more from the Lakers in terms of like they go on another deep playoff run, they make that they make a blockbuster trade. Although with the timing of it, he's got to make some of these decisions before a potential trade. So we'll see. Maybe the Lakers like pull off a blockbuster on draft night and all of a sudden LeBron extends. But if I had to bet right now, I would say the favorite is LeBron opting in for the 51.4. Shabu again, hard pass on PJ. I get it. Again, like PJ might just be washed. And I think like the Clippers in theory could use that type of player. They've wanted a bigger forward. And the fact that PJ isn't playing or they have determined that PJ can't play for them, like it's kind of a red flag. Michael, looking ahead of the playoffs, do you feel like the Lakers go to another level when lock in on one team? Yes, and that's the thing. Like, so I just wrote a story today on The Athletic. You should check it out if you've not subscribed. 5 reasons to be optimistic about the Lakers, and one of them is just like we've seen this team elevate in the in-season tournament. We saw them elevate last season when they made this mad dash to go on their playoff run. And I think Darvin Ham, made some good adjustments in the playoffs, push some of the right buttons. I think that's why some of the decisions he's made this season have been a little surprising because it felt like he made a lot of progress last season. And then it hasn't always felt like we've seen that same level of progress from him this season. Like it hasn't been a linear progression necessarily. But I think, the Lakers are going to have the 2 of the 3 best, and in some cases, the 2 best players in any playoff series. And like historically, this is a bit reductive, and I'm not saying it's always the case, but like if you look at go through look at the stats for any playoff series, and like typically the best player in the series tends to win, unless it's like the LeBron against the Warriors where he's going up against 4 all-stars and like 2 guys who could like match his level on a given night, or like just a guy who's like an 8 seed at like T-Mac versus I think of like T-Mac on the Magic versus those early 2000s Pistons teams where T-Mac is the best player, but like the Pistons have this incredible starting lineup and they blow the 3-1 lead. And like, so there are exceptions, of course, but like for the most part, I think from a talent perspective, the Lakers are going to be right there with just about any team in the West. I'd still probably put Denver and the Clippers at like a different level. But aside from those two, I look at it like a talent perspective, they can match up with anyone. And then again, like that top end talent, which is what you really want in the playoffs, the Lakers have that. So I think Lakers are more dangerous to me as a playoff team than a regular season team. Like in the regular season, you're being a bit conservative with LeBron and AD. Like look at the Utah game. Like if that's a playoff game, LeBron's playing. He's not sitting that one out. But and I just think you play a tighter rotation, and like that starting lineup in theory should be playing more. If that group continues to gel and grow and play more, like all of a sudden you're cooking with something. So I think that's why like I am more bullish on the Lakers playoff odds and playoff success than regular season, and you're gonna see that now. Of course, like they probably underachieved in the regular season too, like they have, but they also, even within the injuries and everything, like I think different lineups, different starting lineups, whatever, they could have some more wins. But I would say like when the Lakers can lock in and you get Anthony Davis, arguably the best defensive player in the world, uh, like you saw what he did against Golden State, you saw what he did against Memphis. By games 2, 3, 4 of those series, those guards did not want to penetrate, and there was a lot of the Steve Nash like driving through the lane and circling out along the baseline and like resetting the offense, because it was just like if we drive, like this dude's gonna block the shot or he's going to contest it and make us throw up like some Hail Mary that misses. And like AD was just so dominant defensively. So if you give him a strong game plan, you give him film and numbers to digest and process, like Anthony Davis is a defensive monster. We know LeBron's track record. He's great at sniffing out weaknesses. Well, he'll target the weakest defender on the opposing defense. So like, I think there's plenty more reasons. Like Lakers might enter the playoffs as like a 6, 7, 8 seed, but in terms of odds of getting out of the West, I think they certainly have to be higher than that. Let's see. Shabu again. Disabled player exception. I'm not quite sure. I don't know the exact rules. I haven't heard that. So I feel like if that was something that could happen, I would have probably heard that by now. He was asking if the bad outcomes, Gabe, Vando, can they apply for? Okay. Let's see. Some of these comments, man. Love you guys. All right. Let's see. Commenting Jackson daydreams, doesn't box out. Like, yeah, I mean that's one of the things with Jackson. Andre, do you have some concerns with the Lakers trying to flip the switch just to get into the top 6, 7? Yeah, I mean that's the one concern right now, and that was the concern last season. Was that LeBron came back sooner than expected from his foot injury, and to me was never quite the same player. Like he was still really good, and he still had some monster performances, like Game 4 against Denver, and several along the way. But like if you look at some of the highlights from LeBron earlier in the season versus when he came back from that foot injury, he didn't have the same burst. He didn't have the same pop. He didn't have the same explosion, the same athleticism. And part of that was him rushing back for the playoff push. And then several of the guys I felt like ran out of gas. Like really, I mean, by the Denver series, it was LeBron, it was AD, it was Austin, it was Rui, and it was Dennis. And like those were the 5 guys the Lakers could rely on. Everyone else like just wasn't ready for the moment or was gassed. And so I think that's the one fear, is like exerting so much energy over the next 2 months just to get into the playoffs. And then once you're there, you obviously have to ramp it up even higher. So that would be one of my concerns. Nevin, love it that you started your own channel. Where do you see the Gabe Vincent fitting in? I could see them both playing next to each other. I know Laker fans don't love the 3-guard lineups. I get it. I don't love it either. But I think Spencer and Gabe, like both are technically guards, right? But I think they come with different strengths. Like Gabe to me is more of an off-ball guy, more of a catch and shoot threat, more of a spot up threat. And a much better defender, especially at the point of attack, more of a point guard defender, whereas Spencer has actually tended to defend wings recently. So I would say defensively, there's not much overlap there. it kind of just pushes Spencer more to a shooting guard position rather than a backup point guard position. Like he'll still handle the ball a bit, but I usually when coaches and team personnel are talking about like positions, it tends to be more of the defensive end of like what type of player are you guarding. So from like a defensive perspective, I look at Gabe as more of like a point guard defender, Spencer as like more of a 2.5 depending on the opposing three. And in that case, so offensively, like I mean, Gabe is on paper one of the Lakers' better shooters, and can be that. I think there's a clear top 6 in terms of their offense, but like he could be the 7th guy in terms of like the offensive pecking order. So I think I don't see like if Gabe gets healthy and comes back, I just don't see how he doesn't play given the financial commitment and given the Lakers wanting to at least rejuvenate that asset if it is something they want to trade in the summer. So I think like Gabe's likely going to play if he comes back. Julius, I'm going to avoid that question. Commenting Raphael. Raphael, just what I've already reported, which is that there is some internal pessimism about Vando coming back, that he might have to have season-ending surgery at some point. So he's going to be reevaluated after the All-Star break. We should have a bit of a better idea end of the month, early March. But I mean, everything I had heard before the Lakers update was that he was going to be out. Then they released this update, but they didn't really say like he's coming back in a few weeks. He's going to be reevaluated in a few weeks. Then Rob Pelinka says at his press conference, like, we have not ruled out season-ending surgery. So to me, I think there's a little bit of smoke there with like, I don't know if Vando's coming back. Let's see. Joan, what are your thoughts on LeBron retiring? Like, just so everyone knows, I got a hard out at like 2:35, so I got 7 more minutes. I'm going to try and do some rapid fire. Joan, what are your thoughts on LeBron retiring a Laker? Are they willing to draft Bronny? I know the Lakers want LeBron to retire a Laker. From what I've heard, LeBron, that's his preference as well, is to retire a Laker. Obviously, he wants to win another championship at least and compete for championships. So like, there's a competitive element to it, and that's where LeBron is so like win now focused of, let's trade the draft picks, let's trade the young guys, like let's get better right now. And as an organization, the Lakers have to balance like, well, what does the rest of the decade look like? How are we kind of, balancing not just this year, but like 2027, 2031. So that's kind of just the natural like push and pull that comes with an older superstar and a franchise that wants to have a sustainable window of competing. But I think both sides want this to continue, so I suspect that will happen. And as far as Bronny, as we reported on The Athletic, we heard from a high-ranking source that the Lakers would be open to drafting Bronny, be it in depending on where he ends up, like late first round, second round, if he goes undrafted, signing him, and that would be a way to kind of appease. I mean, first, like Bronny is an NBA prospect, and I know he's coming off the bench for USC. It's not a very good team. He has not looked great, but like before his heart situation, he was a guy who was being projected in the first round, and the heart situation obviously factors into things, and we'll see how the rest of the season goes. We'll see how he continues to develop. But everything I've heard from NBA people is that Bronny is viewed as a better NBA prospect than a college prospect. So, people have compared him to like a poor man's Drew Holiday, or not poor man's Marcus Smart, but like kind of along the same ilk of like a defensive minded athletic guard who, isn't going to be like an all-star level talent offensively, but can do enough as a secondary ball handler and playmaker. So we'll see kind of I think it's way too early to make a proclamation either way on Bronny. I mean, the dude, it's been through a lot. I mean, it has had that spotlight on him since he was born, then, has to deal with a very scary health situation. And then now everyone's like talking about him like this commodity of like, is he going to come out? Is he not? And like, that's part of the process. But like, I think we need some grace with the situation of just like, we'll see how it plays out. But the Lakers are interested. If there's an opportunity to add Bronny and you are able, and it makes sense for the Lakers, and you're able to keep LeBron happy and appease him, and hey, maybe we didn't do a move at the 2024 trade deadline, but we got you your son. I think that you would take that trade. So we'll see. There's no handshake deal. There's no that the stuff isn't legal, and again, there's a chance Bronny ends up elsewhere, but like the Lakers are interested if an opportunity presents itself to add him, to potentially add him. Black Mama 72, I appreciate you. Lil Chris Johnson, I agree. Is it Ode? Odie? I appreciate you. Superval, do you think a Vincent Dinwiddie backup guard rotation could work if Gabe returns? Yeah, I think so. I think you have a solid perimeter defender in Gabe, and you have Dinwiddie's been okay so far defensively. He is 6'5" with a 6'8" wingspan, so like he has more size and athleticism than D'Lo or Austin. I think like the best version of Austin is better defensively than Spencer, and I think Spencer's presence has allowed Austin to be a little bit more off the ball, try a little bit more defensively. I think of that steal that he got in Utah and into the and one like late in the third quarter, and like that's a play that Austin felt like Austin would make that type of play like once a game last year, once every other game. And like we haven't seen those types of hustle plays from him as much as he's played more on the ball, taken on a larger offensive role. So I think Spencer allows Austin to do that a little bit more. So like Lakers don't have the best defensive guard combination in the West, in the league. Obviously, like, there are some limitations there, but with AD, with an engaged LeBron, with the right scheme, with the right size, with Vando potentially coming back, like with Max, with Cam, like you have enough there that you just have to be solid. And again, I think Gabe is their best guard defender. I guess Max, I'm considering him more of a wing, Cam more of a wing, but like if we're looking at the guards of like Gabe, Spencer, Austin, and D'Lo, Gabe is the best defender out of that floor. And the fact that they haven't had him all season, like that's a big blow. So just to add a guy like that, he's not going to be Dennis. He's not going to have that same type of like energetic impact, but Gabe's really solid. So I think the Lakers have really missed that. If you could choose any, say Andre 19, if you could choose any former Laker from the Lonzo, Ingram, Clarkson era, who would be best fit? You know what? Okay, Ingram's the best player, so like add Ingram, and like I think that's the easy answer. I would like to see Lonzo with this group. Like the shooting got better though in Chicago, and like as his career has progressed, the shooting's gotten better. But like Lakers having he would fit in with the transition offense. He would fit in as like an athletic, defensive minded guard who could rebound well. Like the Lakers have just needed more verve and more oomph like on the perimeter. And I think Lonzo. So like, of course, like Ingram's the best. Ingram's the best of those former guys. Randall's interesting, but like I don't love the fit with Randall and LeBron and AD, especially with like LeBron transitioning more to power forward. So I would say, I would say like Ingram to me is the answer, but like Lonzo would be the most fun. I got to go in like 2 minutes, so just so everyone knows. Again, if you have not subscribed, please be sure to subscribe to my channel. Check out my other videos, vlogs, post-game reactions, post-game availabilities, and I'm going to be doing these lives once a week moving forward, maybe even twice if I can pull it off. But I really appreciate everyone tuning in. Let's do rapid fire here to close this out. Julie Parker, what do you think the Lakers, the chances are that Ham doesn't survive this summer? I think it comes down to how the season ends. Do the Lakers lose in the play-in tournament? Do they lose in the first round? I think it puts it in play at that point. If they make another run, then I think he's safe. I think losing in the play-in tournament would be like the ultimate disaster of this just might not be like the right fit. If they make the playoffs and they're like the 6th or 7th seed and lose round one, you're an underdog at that point. It's hard to really like fault Darvin in the vacuum there, like you could fault him obviously for them being a 6 or 7 seed and some of the lineup and rotational decisions. But I think I think there is going to be a evaluation over the summer. I think ultimately the Lakers didn't want to make a change and have to figure out, are we hiring someone? Are we promoting someone? And in part, like they hired Darvin to develop, with this being his first job, to develop and go through some growing pains with him. And I think they felt they didn't want to pull the plug and just be like, the second there's significant adversity, we're quitting on you. Right. So we can agree or disagree with that process, but I think there will be a reevaluation process in the summer. And depending on how the season ended, depending on where things are at, I think, we'll see. Kian, thank you. Freddie Lopez. If when LeBron does leave and Lakers have to target another star to pair with AD, what star in your opinion would be? So I actually really like the Trae Young fit. I'm not the biggest fan of Trae Young's shot selection and defense. And I do think, like, similar to Dame, as we're now seeing in Milwaukee, like there are some limitations with that and some problems that come with that. But Trae, Luka. Luka's probably the answer. Like, just imagine trying to defend a Luka AD pick and roll. I think Anthony Edwards would blow up and be like the biggest athlete in the NBA if he was on the Lakers, with that personality and charisma and like charm and comedic humor. Like he's already been in a movie and we've already seen the acting skills. Like Anthony Edwards, I think would blow up out here. So that's more of an off the court thing, but I think he could handle the spotlight and like really like kind of be like Shaq when he came and just kind of like that larger than life personality. So I would say though, Luka and I think someone who's a really good pick and roll player who can unlock that with AD, because that's like been the one thing with the LeBron AD, and I don't know how much of it's on LeBron and AD. I don't know how much of it's on Darvin, like combination, but like I would still like to see more of that, and having a pick and roll practitioner and an elite one who has that pull up, spot up, step back threat, the way that Trae and Luka do. I would love to see that type of guy with AD. Now you could also say like a Jason Tatum and Anthony Edwards again, like another star wing, just a younger star wing. And okay, let's. Nice. How true are the Trae Young rumors? They're true. They're true. Roms, when are you going to hang out with Trevor Lane? I should be on sometime within the next few weeks. We've typically done it every few weeks. Jeremy, I will be watching the All-Star game. I'm actually out here in Vegas with my son. That's why I got to go in exactly 1 minute to go pick him up from school. Alvin, so you're saying when I don't cover, okay. So he's asking if I'm not at a game, if I can cover with Trevor or someone. I could do that. That would be fun. Actually, that's a really good idea. It was a back-to-back. It didn't really make sense. I wasn't going to All-Star. It didn't really make sense for me to go to Salt Lake for like less than 24 hours, especially with LeBron not playing, honestly. But I should be going to every game moving forward on the road. But if I don't, or for whatever reason I get sick or something, and I'm just at home, it's a really good idea to do one of these or playback. Like I want to keep it to one platform for now, so I'd probably do it here rather than doing like a playback or something. But last one here from Jackson. Jovan, do you think the All-Star game will be a dud again, or will be better? I like that they went back to East-West, but I think until they start playing some actual, and like the Elam ending, I like the Elam ending. I don't know why they got rid of it. But until the games become a little bit more competitive and not just glorified dunk contests and 3-point shootouts, like I just think that it misses that competitive element. And I think in retro, like if you go back and look at some of the old All-Star games, they weren't as competitive. Like they weren't as competitive in the first 3 quarters as people remembered. Like it was a lot of the same stuff of like, get out of the way, let this guy dunk, not contest this 3. But that like final 4th quarter was super competitive. And it was like a snapshot of like, these are the 10 best players in the league, or like, these are at least the 5 best players in each conference, like for tonight. And they're going to go at it for the final 6-7 minutes of the game. and like this is a heavyweight bout with some all-stars. So that I would love to see that again. I don't know if we ever will. It's become cool not to try during the All-Star game, cool not to try during All-Star weekend, but I do have to go pick my son up. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I'm going to be doing this more often. If you've not checked out my other stuff, please check out the channel, subscribe, like, comment, all that stuff. I'm also trying to post more on shorts, taking some of the clips and condensing them. So this is my first live. Thank you guys for popping my cherry with me, and this was really fun. I appreciate all the comments and all the love. So again, we'll be doing this once a week going forward. I'm gonna see if I maybe pick a day or it's just kind of random, but I'll be posting it on here, on Twitter, etc. Appreciate you guys, and I will talk to you soon.